Hi everyone, welcome back to SwitchUp, and to the series where we go back over some games that have been patched since they came out. We got some really good ones this week, things like Zelda, Pokemon, Boltgun, which just released, and a few others. If you enjoy this type of content, then do let me know down in the comments. We can have a little chinwag, and also give me any suggestions for the next episode. Thanks to all of you that support this series as well. It does support developers that actually put the legwork in after launch, as it's not just about games that release in a bad shape and get patched up. That's just, well, quite a lot of them. It's also about those ones that put in extra work to make the games even better after launch. Alright, what has been all patched up? Well, my name's Mark Walker, welcome back to SwitchUp. Now let's find out. Let's start then with the brand newly released, the brand new release Boltgun, which is part of the Warhammer 40,000 series and is a first-person shooter that I played mostly through on the Steam Deck because those codes came in earlier, and it was amazing, really fun game. Can get a little bit repetitive, but it was great, and one of the things I loved about it was how good the ambient sound as well as those crunchy sound effects are. It was with some trepidation then that I loaded up the very late code for the Switch version, expecting terrible performance, but performance was actually fine. It was sad that it didn't have gyro controls, but the biggest issue was with the audio quality. It was lacking all the ambient sounds. The noise of the chainsaw wasn't there. The sound of some weapons was missing. It just felt bad, and it ruined the game for me. It just didn't feel right. Lo and behold, about half a day later, or a day and a half later after that, they released a patch 1.0.0.2, and here's the result. Here, ambient sounds have returned. So the chainsaw now revs, the weapons now make the noises they should. The only issue I've experienced is a slight delay in some of the audio, but it's generally fine and it's so much better than it was when it first came out. Really pleased that they got this out. It's a shame for them really that they didn't get it out before the review, because for me it did impact slightly on the gameplay, because it's like trying to watch something without sound, and obviously it had a huge impact on the sound score. Had I had the perfect experience from the get-go, I think we'd be in the high 70s, early 80s for me. It's a really fun game, but it does, as I say, get a little bit repetitive. Still a quick and efficient patch job. Then we have Tears of the Kingdom, which has had a number of patches since it came out, but I have been keeping an eye on to see if they can fix that performance issue that you get when your Ultra Hand comes out. And I've also been keeping an eye to see if they tinker with any glitches that were present in the game. Now with the latest patch, the patch number you can see on the screen that I've totally forgotten, straight off the bat, they fixed the duping glitch, so you can no longer dupe your items, which for me, if I used it, would probably be a blessing in disguise, because I probably wouldn't have been able to stop using it, and suddenly the need to go out of the house in Zelda would have got very minimal, and I may have become a recluse, clutching a hoard of diamonds and wondering why oh why did I ever start this duping glitch in the first place. But that's not me, so, you know, if it's you, well done. In all seriousness though, yeah, that's fixed, or removed I should say. Now when you go to try and do that, if you were so inclined, you may find that you can no longer drop the second bow. Yeah, so it was quite a rudimentary fix, but it seems to have worked, upsettingly. Now the only other thing here is the performance, and if I visit the same areas as before, I'm seeing the same slowdown, so they haven't forced the Switch to increase its memory bandwidth as some others have by a tiny margin to fix that issue, but it's Nintendo and I'm sure they'll figure out something. I've been watching a few programmers comment on the physics in this one and how absolutely ludicrous it is that it all works on a handheld device. It's funny when you go from a patch in a game that looks this good to one that doesn't, which will take us on to our next game. Next up then we've got Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. It's been 6 months since this came out, and this is how it launched. As you can see, there are a number of visual glitches. There's loads of aliasing, lots of jaggy edges around the edges of items. The draw distance is okay, but there's glitching, and performance generally just isn't great. With the latest patch, we weren't promised any performance improvements, but you must remember that 6 months ago they did actually mention that they would, well, they at least acknowledged that performance wasn't great, and I think most people assumed then that within 6 months we would see some improvements. But unfortunately, Game Freak don't seem to have the same set of developers on hand as Tears of the Kingdom, and what that means is that your performance hasn't changed in 6 months. It looks just as it did before, which isn't impressive. In fact, they may have even stripped out some of the assets from the environments to try and, well, I don't know what they're doing really. You get quite a few glitches. I know a lot of people say this doesn't matter to them, and I'm pleased for them, I really am. But can you imagine a Tears of the Kingdom level of quality within the Pokemon universe? Or something Xenoblade 3 level? I think those fans that find this okay would lose their minds. The patch did fix a few things, so it's all related to online play, the patch notes of which you can see on the screen right now. So Pokemon Scarlet and Violet continues to be less than ideal, shall we say. Tales of Symphonia was a bit disappointing for me because it didn't use the GameCube build. Now that's not exclusive to the Nintendo Switch version, but it was a little bit strange considering the GameCube ran at 60 frames per second, and the Switch version actually was struggling at times to get 20 frames per second. Now, yes, it is arguable that these are different builds entirely of the game, but this is a Nintendo console, and using the PlayStation version over the GameCube version, which is a Nintendo console, seems a little odd. Now with that said, they have released a patch, and the patch does fix a few things. Chiefly, it fixes the frame rate across the game, but it doesn't bring it up to 60. I don't think that's ever going to happen because of the base build. With that said, the fact that it's now locked out at 30 at least is a little more appealing to most players. There were some areas, particularly in the desert, where it would drop right down, and you can see right now, it's completely fixed. There's the potential that load times have been ever so slightly improved, but I did note that there were a couple of occasions in large combat instances that I could get the frame rate to drop down ever so slightly, so maybe there's a little bit more tinkering that needs work, and the audio fidelity is still not as good as I believe it should be. It's nice to see them go in the right direction though, and the developers and publishers did acknowledge the issues that players were having with Symphonia, so that's a start. Last but not least then, and an unexpected one that's had an unexpected amount of patches. It's Bramble, published by Merge Games, which we did a video for when it came out. This is a lovely little Grimm's fairy tale style adventure where you play as a brother and a sister, well essentially someone looking for their lost sibling, and then it takes a very dark turn. Now it was in Unreal Engine and it was looking good at launch, but it did have that dynamic resolution scaling blur that we see. It had a few artifacts. It just looked like you'd smudged Vaseline in each eye. With the latest, it almost to me looks like they might be using FSR or some form of AI upscaling. It looks much sharper than it did before. It's less glitchy. Performance is much more consistent. You're looking at 30 FPS almost locked out now, whereas before it was dropping much more frequently. Now it does have the occasional dip, which don't usually affect gameplay. There are a couple of moments where you'll be running away from monsters and you will need to use timing, which when there's a performance drop isn't ideal because it introduces latency, but generally it felt much better to me. I am quite impressed. There are some scenes that look quite stunning, like when you're hopping over the lily pads on the pond, and it goes to show what you can do even with a small development team when you put the time in to improve in performance after launch. So yeah, Bramble gets for sure the seal of approval on Switch. It's a really nice one to play in handheld, and it's a fun if, well, very macabre and dark adventure. So that's it for this week for our all patched up episode. I'm trying to make these more frequently because, well, I like making them and it seems like there are just more and more patches coming out all the time. So if you enjoy it, do hit all the buttons so the algorithm knows. And yeah, if you want to buy your eShop credit, use switchup.gg. It supports the channel a little and you get your SwitchUp coins, which allow you to save money in the future. Those vouchers are delivered instantly to you and you'll still get your Nintendo Gold coins. So happy days. Thanks to our Patreons and our members as well. You guys mean that we can carry on doing what we love. And as always, for all things Switch, all the time, keep it Switch up. Cheers, guys. See ya!